In 1993, Monica Seles was the #1 tennis player in the world. But then it all changed one fateful afternoon when she was stabbed in the back during a changeover by an assailant wielding a knife. He was never charged with a crime, and Monica Seles never returned to Germany again. The course of the tennis world was changed forever, and Monica Seles' career was never the same.
The women's top women's tennis player in the world is attacked in front of shocked spectators. President Clinton proposes student loans for community service. And tomorrow is the day horse racing fans have been waiting for all year. Headline News, I'm Chuck Roberts. 19-year-old tennis star Monica Seles is being treated for a half-inch deep stab in her back. She was on the court at a women's tennis tournament in Hamburg, Germany today, taking a rest between sets. Suddenly, a man appeared from out of the crowd and drove a knife into her back.
Bitte sofort einen Arzt auf den Platz.
She was taken to the hospital. Doctors say the knife barely missed her spinal cord. No vital organs were damaged. The attacker was quickly subdued and was taken into police custody. The motive for the attack, unclear. President...
This is CNN.
Time is running out. Pressure is building. Bill Clinton faces his first major decision as commander-in-chief.
Tales of horror, evidence of mass murder, a new demand for war crimes trials.
And terror on a tennis court. A young star is stabbed. Is it tied to the war in Bosnia?
This is The World Today with Bobby Batista at the CNN Center in Atlanta and Frank Sesno in Washington.
The world's top-ranked woman tennis player is stabbed in the back at a match in Germany. Details next.
Well, I mean, you've always heard about the problems they've had in big soccer matches over in Europe and things like that with some violence, but tennis is just something that you would never believe that this kind of scene would happen in. Once again, as you heard earlier in the news...
18-year-old tennis star Monica Seles has been hospitalized in Hamburg, Germany. Seles was stabbed in the back by a spectator as she sat at courtside between games. Doctors say the knife wound barely missed her spinal cord, and she is expected to be able to play again in 1 to 3 months. Police and spectators grabbed the attacker. He sat in the front row just above Seles, attacking her in the back from behind. Police say the suspect is a 38-year-old man from eastern Germany. Seles was born in what is now Serbia, but it is not known whether there may have been a political motivation for the attack.
Monica Seles, a native of Serbia, stabbed during a German tennis match. As President Clinton prepares a final decision on military action in Bosnia, while Hillary Clinton previews health care planning on Capitol Hill.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. It is possible tonight the bitter conflict in what was once Yugoslavia led to a bizarre and terrifying attack on a German tennis court today. The target was the #1 woman player in the world, Monica Seles. She was born in Serbia. She has received death threats. And tonight, she's recovering from a knife wound. NBC's Dennis Murphy has more now.
Seles was in the second set of a quarterfinal game when she headed to the players' bench to rest. As the camera looked away, her scream filled the stadium. In the row directly behind her seat, spectators wrestled a man to the ground. In his right hand still the 5-inch knife. Dazed by the net now was Seles. A single stab wound high in her back near her spine. Shock turned to agony on her face as she collapsed. Police dragged the suspect out of the stadium. German authorities believe he is a 38-year-old East German man who appeared to have been drinking. There was no immediate motive for the attack. Medics say Seles' wound is not life-threatening. The 19-year-old native of Yugoslavia, resident of Florida, has been the #1 ranked women's player for 2 years. Her Bulgarian opponent looked on in shock. Seles received death threats last year at Wimbledon, according to British papers. The Women's Tennis Association says threats continue, and they are related to her refusal to renounce Serbia in the civil war ravaging her homeland. German officials tonight displayed the knife used to stab her. Her doctors tonight say she is not in pain. She's expected to recover from her wound in 2 weeks and be playing again in 1 to 3 months. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, London.
As for Bosnia, all the warring parties are due to meet in Greece this weekend to talk peace, but the advanced signs are so uncertain that President Clinton is pushing ahead with his own plans. And NBC
Women's tennis tournament in Germany. Here's ABC's Armin Katayan.
It happened shortly after Monica Seles sat down during a break between games at a tournament in Hamburg. As TV broadcasts cut away to show the score of her match, you could hear the 19-year-old tennis star scream after being stabbed 1 time in the back. The attacker, a male spectator who apparently leaned over the front rail, was described as a 38-year-old German. He was quickly subdued by fans and security personnel. Seles collapsed from a knife wound near her spine that doctors described as 1/2 inch deep, but not life-threatening. Seles is of Hungarian descent, but was born in the Serbian part of Yugoslavia. She has received death threats in the past, linked to the conflict there. But there is no indication that the man who attacked her today was politically motivated. Late tonight, German police say the attacker told them he was a fan of another tennis player, Steffi Graff, and he did not want to kill Seles, only injure her. Seles was taken to a local hospital where she will remain overnight for observation. She is not expected to play tennis again for at least 4 weeks. Armin Katayan, ABC News, New York.
Coming up next on SportsCenter, Monica Seles is stabbed during a tennis match. Defensive back Dave Waymer is dead. In Houston, football coach John Jenkins is out. On the field, it's a brave new world, and they don't like it one bit. Prairie Bayou is tomorrow's Derby favorite, but that might not mean much. And the NBA's 2 leading scorers, Michael and Dominique, face one another tonight in the playoffs. Just some of the stories we're covering on this last day of April. And good evening and welcome to SportsCenter along with Bob Lee. I'm Charlie Steiner. You and I have been at this business a good long time. It's got to be the toughest week that I can remember in all the years we've been covering sports, and unfortunately, the news isn't getting much better.
No, today the world's best women's tennis player was stabbed on the court during a match. Monica Seles was attacked today, stabbed in the back by a 38-year-old man during a match in Hamburg, Germany. The 19-year-old Seles was not seriously injured. Her assailant is in custody. It is not believed to be a politically motivated attack. Seles has won 8 Grand Slam titles, including the past 3 French Opens. Now, Seles will miss 3 to 4 weeks of tennis, and she will not play in Paris this year.
Seles was leading Magdalena Maleta 6-4-4-3 and took a seat for the changeover. Television coverage went to commercial break, but as technicians readied their next video, courtside microphones picked up the attack. Security immediately subdued the assailant. Seles was initially more stunned than injured.
Bitte sofort einen Arzt auf den Platz.
The 5-inch knife entered her back at an angle between her shoulder blades. One report said it narrowly missed her spinal cord. The wound was about 1 inch deep. The attacker is described as an East German. Witnesses say he had apparently been drinking. Local police discount a political motive. Seles is an ethnic Hungarian. She was born in what is now Serbia. Croatian officials have criticized her reluctance to speak out on political matters in the ongoing Yugoslavian civil war.
That political upheaval has resulted in death threats for Seles over the last several years. She has lived in the United States for the last 7 years. Monica Seles will be released from a Hamburg hospital tomorrow. This tournament was her first appearance in the last 2 months after suffering from a viral infection. Charlie?
This is CNN.
The Bosnian War rages as President Clinton considers what to do about it and how to convince allies to go along.
The top-ranked player in women's tennis is knifed by a spectator right in the middle of a match.
And President Clinton offers a plan he says should make a college education possible for everyone who wants one.
This is CNN's World News. What you need to know, what you want to know, with Susan Rook and Patrick Greenlaw.
Seles. The Serbian-born Seles was stabbed today during a match at the Hamburg Open. Police say her alleged attacker, a German spectator, told them he did it because he wanted German Steffi Graff to regain the #1 ranking. Kevin Dunn has more.
Monica Seles was resting between games in her quarter-final match when microphones captured the moment she was stabbed. She staggered towards the center of the court as officials rushed to her assistance. Miss Seles apparently only slowly realizing she'd been stabbed between the shoulder blades, but clearly in some pain. Meanwhile, spectators and officials wrestled her attacker to the floor. Miss Seles, who is Serbian-born, has received threats in recent months because of the conflict in the former Yugoslavia. Though Hamburg police said her attacker, who was armed with a long, thin knife, was a 38-year-old man from what was East Germany. It wasn't clear what his motive for the attack was. As her opponent, a distraught Magdalena Malieva, looked on, Miss Seles was helped to her feet and onto a stretcher. Doctors said later she had a single wound, 1 to 2 inches deep, but the blade had narrowly missed her spinal cord and also missed her lungs. Tonight, Miss Seles was sent from hospital to be suffering from shock, but breathing normally and in no pain. She had, one doctor said, been very lucky.
That was Kevin Dunn reporting. And by the way, Seles was playing for the first time after a 9-week layoff due to illness, and doctors expect her to be out of action for at least 4 weeks.
Coming up later in our focal point, a look at the steps the U.S. may take in Bosnia and how likely they are to succeed.
But
Coming up on SportsCenter, another disturbing sight. Monica Seles stabbed on a court in Germany. The attempt to three-peat begins as Michael puts his signature on the Bulls' first hurdle. The Pacers looking to undress the Knicks, but it didn't take long for the game to swing into action. Sir Charles and the Suns looking to have their way with the Lakers. The Sonics' Sean Kemp having no trouble finding his way against the Jazz. On the diamond, the Royals trying to rob one from the O's, but Hal McRae, well, he still looks a bit shell-shocked. Rhino back, and he hasn't changed a bit, while Griff Jr. was a showstopper in New York. Be sure and watch the camera. SportsCenter is next.
His life is not in danger, but to those who saw it happen on the court on Friday morning, it appeared that another tragedy was unfolding in most shocking fashion. #1 in the world, Monica Seles, was stabbed between the shoulder blades by a man attending her match in Hamburg, Germany on Friday. Seles' injuries are not life-threatening, but they may prevent her from defending her title in Paris when the French Open begins in 3.5 weeks. U.S. Open officials say they will review their security plans in the wake of today's attack. Players throughout the game have voiced their concern and best wishes for Seles, who is playing her first tournament in 2 months. Seles was closing in on a straight sets win over Magdalena Malieva. During the odd game changeover, cameras cut away from the #1 player. A man identified as a 38-year-old from Eastern Germany then stabbed her in the back with a 5-inch knife. A security guard immediately subdued the attacker, while others at courtside rushed to the aid of the 19-year-old Seles.
Bitte sofort einen Arzt auf den Platz.
According to Hamburg police, the man in custody says he did not want to kill Seles, only to injure her to keep her from playing. He calls himself a Steffi Graff fan. Graff is ranked 2nd in the world behind Seles. Police add there were no political grounds for the attack, that the man appears confused and may be mentally disturbed. Seles' manager reports that the stab wound did not hit the spinal cord or the lungs, but adds that the extent of injuries and the length of Seles' recovery are yet to be determined.